Doctor Who has returned for the 2024 Christmas special, and so have we at Comic Books Transformed. I'm Pete. I'm the host usually, and I'm usually with my friend Brian over there. But instead, today we have a special guest, Mike Bongiorno from Pop Culture Man Children. Mike, welcome back.
It's great to be back doing another Doctor Who episode with you.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Guys, we were off the air, not on YouTube and on the podcast streaming channels, for about a month, and then Mike over there was a big influence on me coming back and doing this show. So I wanted to say thanks to Mike.
You're welcome. Look, we all went through something. November of 2024,
Right,
and my girlfriend got really on. We got to get our passports.
right.
Got to go
Nice
get our
sense of that.
passports, and I'm like, okay. I mean, so it happens. It's good to see you back, though.
Yeah, heck yeah. And you got to go check out Pop Culture Man Children. You want to just tell people what it is in case they don't remember or they haven't seen us before?
Pop Culture Man Children is my podcast. Peter is a regular contributor to it. We just did 2 episodes on Arcane, which were very good. PCMC is available anywhere podcasts are found, including YouTube.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pop culture ephemera. It's not we call it non-toxic fandom. So movies, TV, not really music, sometimes books. Often it's movie, TV, and fandom things.
Yeah. And I just love having Mike on because then there's the chance to hear the word ephemera on this channel. It's like, okay, we're gonna plug PCMC. Ephemera is coming. Gotcha. But I mean, no, it's great stuff. And just listening to like our episodes where we talked about Arcane, I was like, oh, you know what? I really enjoy talking about this kind of stuff. So I gotta get my channels back going. But I am glad that we came back just in time for the Christmas special because the more I think about it, the more I liked Joy to the World, right?
Hmm.
So so it was written by Stephen Moffat, and I think last season Stephen Moffat he wrote a single episode. It was Boom, right?
Oh yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's like connective tissue between that particular episode and this episode too.
Yeah, the evil corporation villain guard, which I think was from an old episode, but now they seem to be gearing up towards something because it was mentioned I think twice last season, and now it's mentioned again here in this Christmas special. So I guess maybe that's the big bad we're aiming towards here. But
Yeah.
Moffat, I love Moffat. It's interesting because Moffat was at one point the grand poobah of Doctor Who. He was the showrunner, executive producer, and with Doctor Who, BBC doesn't. I mean, they have a great stake in Doctor Who, but there's no like Kevin Feige or anybody like if you are the executive producer of the show Doctor Who, you kind of get to dictate canon and you could change anything you want. And for what he was all Matt Smith and also Peter Capaldi. So what, like 3 or 4 seasons, he was the guy.
Right.
Um, and then he left, and then Chris Chibnall came with the Jodie Whittaker Doctor, and now it's cool to see him back and doing things because I feel like I actually like him better as a random writer because he has a certain whimsy where
Hmm.
if the overall architect, I think sometimes it gets a little bit too fantasy and not
Hmm.
enough sci-fi. But I think this is a perfect episode for him because Doctor Who Christmas specials always tend to lean into the more like saccharine edge of Doctor Who.
Right. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could say like which showrunner I prefer the most. Like, do I like Russell T Davies better than Stephen Moffat? But I would say that that's sort of like that late David Tennant, early Matt Smith time. That was like the time that everyone was into Doctor Who, like we've said
Yeah,
before. But like that's the time that I appreciate the most, and that's kind of like when he starts to take over Moffat, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he
Yeah,
created some of the best, even before he was the executive producer, he was a writer, just like he is again now. During the Russell T Davies era, he created the Weeping Angels. He's had a huge effect on Doctor Who. It seems like after the Chris Chibnall era, it was a real departure. It was a first female doctor. It was someone new doing the music. It had a different feel in terms of its cinematography, and I liked that era. But I guess the world didn't.
yeah,
So after they were like, let's get back Russell T Davies. Let's get back the original composer. Let's get back Moffat if we can, and it's this sort of return to the way things were, which is fine. And Russell T Davies is definitely my favorite,
okay,
I'd say.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. No, it's funny. I was just in Hallmark today with my family, and they have a doctor. They have the 12th Doctor, um, Christmas ornament,
Oh,
right?
really? Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Capaldi, right? And then I was like, okay, well, they had Matt Smith last year. Now they have Peter Capaldi this year. So then they're gonna have Jodie Whittaker next year.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
It
had this
takes
kind of cynical thought of like, oh, people aren't gonna buy that one.
They might, and you know what? They might even just skip it because people didn't like that one. It's a shame. It's funny. I feel like the way I feel about Jodie Whittaker is the way a lot of people seem to be currently in fandom talking about Henry Cavill, which
Oh,
was which was they were good, but everything around them didn't support them the way that they should have been supported. So, and
right, right,
I think that's an interesting way to. I like that era, but I understand people being cold towards it.
right. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, now we're in another era, and it's a bit like controversial as well. We'll get into that in a minute. But as we're finishing up our talk on Moffat, I wanted to point out half of the script had been completed before Russell T Davies told Moffat that Ruby Sunday wasn't going to be in it. Isn't that funny?
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting. Well, okay. Okay. Well, I
yeah.
guess often on Christmas. That's really interesting. I'm trying to think of how he could have changed it.
Well, I think what's interesting is that for like this episode, they advertise it as if it's going to be the Doctor and this woman named Joy, right? Nicola Coolin, I guess is how you would say her name. I don't know.
Coughlin,
But,
from the girl from Dairy Girls and
and she's in
Bridgerton.
Bridgerton. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's so funny because I remember from our Arcane recording, I just kept saying zone, zone, zone over and over again. Instead of Zahn, you corrected me a bunch of times. So I'm glad you're here to say her name correctly because I just totally
I,
just messed that up.
I might be wrong, by the way. I just think it's Coughlin.
Oh,
That's what it
okay.
looks like to me. I have no idea, but she's
Okay.
great.
Well, okay, but she's great. But that's the thing is that like it's advertised like Joy is and the Doctor. That's going to be the duo for this episode and running around everywhere, right? But then there's this huge gap where the Doctor's not with her in the episode and he's with another woman. And I think that was probably somehow influenced by the Moffat writing the episode without knowing that Ruby Sunday wasn't going to be in it. You know,
That's interesting. Oh yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, yeah,
like
and everybody. Sorry.
no. I'm sorry for cutting you off. My quick thing I was going to say was that maybe that scene with Anita, that sequence, maybe that would have been him and Ruby doing something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I was
So
just
I
gonna
will.
say, everyone
Yeah,
online
go ahead.
seems super into that. Like I think IO9 wrote an article about it. Like everyone's like that whole segment. Everyone's crazy about like the sort of story within the story, and I am too. I was, you know, I think Christmas specials are they're sometimes fraught with too much sentimentality. There's one during the Moffat era that's like inspired by Chronicles of Narnia, which is
Oh,
which is really terrible. I mean, it's one of the worst Christmas specials, and
oh my God.
But then there were good ones and bad ones. This one, I kind of went into it like not sure what I was gonna get, and I ended up being like, wow, that was a really good Christmas episode and a really good just episode. So this is
Yeah.
one of the better ones, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've seen some of the reviews too, and I feel kind of the same way. I think that uh, what works best about this particular episode is that it doesn't lean into that magic, right? All of last season we had, you know, the kind of dark gods like the maestro, right? The one of them was the
Yeah, yeah,
maestro, right?
yes,
Um, and so this one is much more like science fiction and dealing with time travel, and um, it has the time travel hotel, which I think like the concept of the time travel hotel is just like so like exciting in itself. You know, it
yeah.
gives you that sense of wonder. Yeah. Go ahead. You want to talk about what the time hotel is?
The Time Hotel is this very interesting setting where it's in the future of Earth. I think they say 2040 something.
Not
And
like 40 something, right?
40 something. And each room is a different moment in time or time period. And you can go and I guess cosplay towards the time you want to be in. And then you go in and it's you know, they call it a hotel, but I don't see how you can actually live. You can't stay in any of these places. You just would visit and see. And the episode begins by showing a bunch of these destinations, and some of them I had to look up. Those guys that we see on Everest, that's the first party that made it to the top of Everest.
Oh,
That's
that's cool.
yeah, because I was like, I looked up that date. I forget what the date was, but I looked up that date and Mount Everest, and I saw that that was the year that the first party got to the summit. So I was like, okay,
Oh,
that's what that is,
yeah.
and it's a very cool idea. You know what I was thinking was Stephen Moffat and Russell T Davies. They've been working on the show for like decades, right?
Hmm.
And they're such huge fans as well. They probably and the idea to have like the time hotel, like Stephen Moffat has written what 40, 50 episodes of Doctor Who, and now
Jeez.
he does the time hotel. Like these guys must just have journals where they write down Doctor Who ideas.
Yep.
And
Yep.
they just and when they go to write an episode, they don't start fresh. They just go through their stuff and go, where am I gonna go now? Like it must be like, oh, time hotel. Let me write that down. Has Stephen Moffat never thought of a time hotel in the last 20 years of writing Doctor Who episodes? It's I don't know. It just that occurred to me that that's probably how they do it.
Yeah, yeah, it's mind blowing, right? Like they are so passionate about it, and there's that excitement in the writing. It's kind of just like, you know, they're Doctor Who idea machines, and
Yeah.
um, like there's so much fun you can have with this episode. Just like I mean, you could make like a movie just based on this hotel, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. The hotel itself is such an interesting concept. And in typical Doctor Who fashion, it's not even really like it's the setting. They don't dig into it too much. It ends up just there's still bigger ideas on top of it.
Right, right, yeah, all stacked up, yeah. Like, the course that the doctor's carrying around in the cold open of the episode. I can't remember what he says, like, what he offers every time he opens the door. Do you remember?
Ham and cheese toasty and a pumpkin latte.
Okay, okay, I knew
It
you would have
sounds
the notes.
delicious, and it looks
Yes.
delicious.
Yeah, yeah. So it's this really random, fun, cold open, and you're not really sure what's going on. And then we find out that there's this briefcase that essentially, whenever it's passed on to another person, it locks onto them and
Yeah,
over their mind, and they are carrying a device that's going to eventually disintegrate them. And so it's sad because there's quite a few characters in the beginning that you meet for like little brief glimpses that work
yeah,
in the time hotel, and they're all likable, but they
yeah,
all kind of disintegrate too, including
yeah,
poor Trev.
yeah. That's one of the good things about Russell T Davies, which is he's not afraid to kill people. Where
Yeah.
Moffat would have had everybody live at the end.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. Well, Trev, I love Trev. I don't know if you ever saw. I know you have daughters. I don't know if you ever saw the film Cruella. But
Yes.
Trev is in that movie, because I was like, "Who is that guy?" No, because I liked Cruella a lot, so
Yeah.
I was like, "This guy's so recognizable, and he's such a like an affable, like nice guy. He like just doesn't want to let the doctor down."
Right.
Um, yeah, it's got such positive vibes. It's such a good Christmas time. I loved it.
You know, it's funny that you say that you know, Russell T Davies would kill all the people off and that Moffat wouldn't. Because when there was that sequence when Trev was disintegrating, I kept thinking like, oh, because they don't show his full disintegration. They show like his hands start to disintegrate.
You're
And I
right.
was like, oh, is he gonna be alive by the end of this episode somehow? You know?
Yeah, in some way he is, but not really.
And that's very similar to that episode of Boom, too, right? Because like the dad's consciousness, the soldier that was also a father,
Yeah.
his consciousness gets stuck in that drone, right? Or in the thing that's going to blow
Yeah.
up.
Yes, yes, the landmine thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very similar. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think there's a
Oh, good.
theme, I think, of like humans versus corporations.
Yes. Corporations, especially corporations that are using technology to like just do the most vile things ever, you know?
Right, right, right.
And then so that like there's a ghost in the machine element in both of these episodes, right? Because it's like
Mm.
the humans that have been done in by the war tech come back almost as ghosts to thwart it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It yeah, it's funny for a show that airs on Disney Plus.
Yes, 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 yes. You know what I always remember? You know in the Simpsons movie, there's that one part where Bart pretends to be Mickey Mouse. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yeah, like to me, that just blows my mind that like that scene happens in that movie, and now the Simpsons are on Disney Plus.
I know, right? It's amazing. It's it also shows the ubiquitous power of corporations that they don't even mind being mocked.
No, no,
They're fine.
it doesn't
They're
matter.
fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's a whole nother tangent unto itself. But like
yeah.
the doctor happens to be good at mocking himself. We have a sequence where the doctor interacts with the doctor in
Yes.
this episode.
It's
I was going to
very
say to you, I know that like in a review that I read, they talked about David Tennant's doctor and they called him like the madman in the box. And I think I'm not David Tennant, Matt
that's it.
Smith's. And then they called David Tennant's like maybe like some kind of god or something, like an indifferent god.
Uh-huh.
Um, so
Interesting.
do you think that Moffat is really into the doctor loathing himself, like, or that's a Russell T Davies thing?
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
I do think, yeah, I think it is a Russell T Davies thing. I think Russell T Davies often dips into this idea that fundamentally the Doctor has a lot of anger toward himself. Um, but I think in particular what we're seeing here is something we've seen a lot, and we've actually seen a lot on Christmas specials, which is in between companions, the Doctor sort of loses his cool. Like the Doctor needs a human. The Doctor needs a human around to ground him and to have somebody's eyes to look through, so the world, um, so he doesn't slip into God mode. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He and that's where we are. He's, you know, we get it right in the beginning when he has two mugs for coffee and he realizes Ruby's not with him. And he's like, "Oh, sorry." And then, you know, there's this great conceit where the briefcase is on Joy. He opens it. It starts to arm itself. He closes it, and then it says it needs a code. And he starts working out like, oh, how do I get the code? Okay, I can't use the TARDIS, but I'm in a time hotel. And then he runs right in and he gives himself the code, which is great time travel stuff. And when he says, where'd you get the code? He doesn't, the older him doesn't answer. And he's like, and it's funny, it's both funny and sad because he's like, you know, this is why people don't like you. You
Right.
always have to be mysterious. This is why you're all alone all the time.
Right.
Which is
Right.
sad. It's sad, but it's also funny for him to react that way toward himself.
No, no, I mean, I think that honestly that might be my favorite aspect of this whole episode is him telling himself off, but then having that growth of a year in 2024 where like he makes it a point to like socialize and to have a
Yeah,
connection with others, you know? The
yeah,
whole thing revolves around that chair. He says, "You don't have any chairs in the TARDIS. That's because you're
right.
so pathetic or whatever." And
You
then
don't even
like
notice it.
what's that?
And you don't even notice that you don't have chairs in the TARDIS.
Right,
And I
right,
guess
right.
chairs here are a symbol for stopping, like taking a break, slowing down, and sitting, which is something he doesn't do.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I felt like that was like, and especially because that sequence ends like when we see the inverse, where the doctor who's been away for a year comes and talks to his past self. You see him look at a chair for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. He's a little bit like the year has helped him. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So no, I mean, sorry for talking so much, but I was gonna say that like that's kind of the thing because they use the idea of the hotel as this cool gimmick because everyone can make that connection of like, oh yeah, what is that door for in the hotel,
Yes,
right?
that's so true. Yeah, that's a fun idea.
Right. So that's fun in itself and it gets you excited. But then they also use the hotel as like metaphor for like um kind of putting your life on hold or like this whole thing where
Yeah.
they talk about how the hotel room shows your true self where the house is deceiving.
Yes, that's a really interesting idea that they get into. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
how do you view the hotel in terms of metaphor for this episode, for this like Christmas episode and this message?
that's an interesting thought. I like the idea that the hotel room or the hotel you choose says a lot about you. Um, and this idea that this woman Joy is sort of spending her holiday at a hotel because she's lonely, but I guess she wants to feel less lonely. She's like talking to a fly in the room. Like that's how lonely she is.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea. It's interesting to think in the Doctor in terms of movement versus stillness.
Okay.
And he doesn't like stillness. There's a during the Matt Smith era, there was a episode where for some reason the Doctor has to live with his companions Amy and Rory on Earth for an extended period, and they just do it like a montage of like
Montage.
of he can't relax. Like he's like fixing the car, and then he's like painting their fence, and then he's mowing their lawn, and he's like fixing things, and then you find out it's been like 3 days or whatever. Like he can't sit down, which
Right.
is a funny idea. But I like this idea of, it made me think like, well, what if I spent a year in a hotel room? Like,
Yeah.
would it be good for you to just to stop and just, you know what I mean? Not that my life is nearly anything like Doctor Who's, but just like a time out like that probably is so good for you.
Oh, absolutely. Where you can like just kind of recess. Like that's the whole thing, right? Is that like um when you have when you're losing the ability to go somewhere or
Yeah,
like like you can't get in your car and go do something, then you basically have to kind of just work and wait, and be with your thoughts. And that's kind of what the doctor has to do, right? Because I mean, that's the thing that they don't play with as much in the show, but it's an interesting concept of like, okay, his TARDIS is gone. There's no way he could travel through time. He's just stuck here now for a year. Like you don't
right,
see that often, but
right.
I don't know. I just think it really works in this episode. A lot of people consider this to be the best part of this episode.
I agree. Yeah, I think it's always interesting. Well, this doctor is so kind-hearted. I really have grown to love Shudigatwa's doctor because he's stylish, he's quick and funny, like a lot of doctors are. He's very confident, but at the same time, very vulnerable. We've talked before in our episodes about how he cries in every episode, and this episode does not disappoint. He cries, I think, twice in this episode because he's such an open, emotional. He's like a perfectly emotionally available person. Um, yeah. I've lost my train of thought. Go on.
No, no. It's okay. I mean, we can kind of go on that train in 1 second, and it's funny because the doctor is on a train at one point in this episode as well. But
Yes.
I wanted to talk about one of the times when he cried, and that's when the Silurian died. I want to talk about that in a second. But
Yeah.
while we're talking about like metaphors and messages in this episode, though, I just want to bring up this one point of: did you find it strange that like Joy's whole reason for being in the hotel is because her mom died of COVID?
Yeah, and she couldn't be with her. And I guess to try to um mask her loneliness, she wanted to go to a hotel instead of staying at home or
Yeah,
something like that.
right,
Isn't it?
right.
Yeah.
But it's so weird because she says like twice, she's like, "Oh, this all happened because I followed their rules." Like I thought that was weird. It seemed kind of like anti-vax kind of stuff.
Yeah, I kind of didn't understand what that was either. She talks about like they told me I couldn't see her and stuff. Like, I didn't totally get it. I didn't totally get it. Um, yeah, it is weird. It is weird. But who knows? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean that's the cool thing about Russell Davies and Stephen Moffat is that there doesn't seem to be a cynical bone in their bodies, right? So it
Right.
doesn't make sense for them to be kind of like anti-vaxxer, But I don't know, maybe they had some kind of experience, where
Who
COVID
knows?
was too much for them.
I did like in general the idea of that because a lot of people experience it. I experienced it with my grandmother. The last time I saw my grandmother, she I saw her on an iPad. And for the last year of her existence, we couldn't see her in person, and she died alone, or
Oh,
died without having seen us in person, which I know
oh,
my mother felt a lot of guilt for, um but then my mother turned into a star, so she's okay. No,
right. Yes.
but
Nice
no, I feel
recovery.
like it's a universe. Sadly, it's a universal thing that I think a lot of us experience. So I thought it was really interesting to bring that up in this episode.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess it's kind of like we're not forgetting this, because it does seem like it's kind of completely absent from our media that we
Yes.
watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like, oh no, we're not forgetting this. This, it was a couple of years ago at this point, but you know, we're gonna bring it back up again. Wasn't that
Yeah.
such a great time? Yeah. So, but then just some other thing. I was gonna say, we should talk about the Silurian that disintegrates.
Yes. The Silurians, the original inhabitants of Earth.
Hmm.
This is just great continuity fodder for fans. Silurians are um they are the lizard people, but they've always been here and there. And I believe it was a Matt Smith episode or a couple of or two-part episode where he brokers a peace treaty between humans and Silurians to share the Earth.
Yeah.
It's sort of a I don't know. It's been a while since I saw that episode, but I remember thinking like maybe it's supposed to be an Israel Palestine thing, because
uh,
it's both of and I don't want to get into that, but humans and Silurians are both like, well, this is our planet, and the Doctor tries to broker an agreement.
oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, so they're always tackling this like deeper stuff, even though it kind of seems silly. But besides it having this like kind of Israel Palestine feel in those older episodes, there was something about like I felt like refugees with this Silurian in this episode,
Mm,
right?
yes, yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah,
like he to me, it's like whatever the Silurian world he was in before he came to the Time Hotel, he made it sound like it was like more primitive and not as great. And then these people found him and put
yeah,
him into service. I think it was kind of interesting how like the hotel like brings you in and then like you become a worker there.
yeah, yeah. And in the end, and it ends with Anita being asked to work at the Time Hotel, and which is like, okay, I guess Anita's life is very kind of small, so it would be better for her.
Yeah.
But it was kind of interesting because just the idea that that would be an upgrade. I don't know. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't totally track, but I get it.
Well, it kind of reminds me of something that I was thinking about after watching the trailer for this season, which is that like it seems like every time the Doctor has a companion, once they leave, they go do their own thing for a couple minutes, but then they join Unit. Like everyone just joins
Yes,
Unit now,
it's always
right?
what happens. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I mean, like Ruby Sunday, they show her in this episode. She's part of this montage where she's, looking up at the sky and she sees the Star of Bethlehem, right?
Yeah.
But then it looks like Ruby Sunday is going to be in unit this season too.
Probably, yeah, yeah. I miss Ruby. I love Ruby Sunday. Um, although I do like the Doctor. I do like the sad Doctor trying to find his place. But I
Yeah.
miss her. But the new companion looks cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can talk about the, trailer for the next season in a second, but I just want to get like two more points with this. There's this whole like kind of giant CGI dinosaur
Yeah,
sequence too in this episode.
and it's really good. I
Yeah.
think that's a Moffat thing. Moffat did an episode called "Dinosaurs on a Spaceship." I think is what it's called.
Right. It
And
has the guy who plays
yeah,
Filch in Harry Potter.
yes, 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 yes. Who then played the first Doctor? Now he's like the official actor who plays the first Doctor when they hold out the first Doctor.
Yeah. So,
Well, there's only like 10 actors in the UK, so they
right.
all, so they play like even Trev. I looked; he was in an earlier episode of Doctor Who as a completely different character.
Oh my god.
Um,
And he was in Game of Thrones too, just like
oh,
the
he was
Filch guy.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
My,
I'm sorry.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's a classic Doctor Who episode with a really shitty looking uh T-Rex that's like stop motion, but not like good like Ray Harryhausen, like real cheap. So I feel like showrunners, contemporary showrunners have always been trying to fix that. I'll be like, look,
Mhm.
we can show you a good dinosaur, and it is a very cool dinosaur. It is a cool dinosaur. It's fun. I mean, that's the fun of Doctor Who, right? The smorgasbord of like there's a Christmas episode. You've got Star of Bethlehem and a dinosaur and a Silurian and
Right.
pumpkin lattes. Come on.
Right,
It's
right. Yeah. Yeah, it's so like whimsical and just like fun. Yeah, and so random. I liked the T-Rex sequence because I also too feel like the effects were good for that. And I was like, oh, this
yeah,
is impressive. But I also did feel kind of like, well, they have to put something kind of random and exciting in here because a lot of this is just relationship building. There isn't kind of,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and like people do disintegrate in this episode, but there isn't really like a scary monster villain. It's just basically the star seed. The consciousness of the
Yeah.
case is kind of the menacing part, but
Right,
that's not
right,
very scary.
right, right, right. It reminds me also a little bit of Villain Guard. Reminds me a little bit of like I think it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
Earth is destroyed to put up like an intergalactic highway or something.
Yes,
Like
yes,
the idea
yes.
of like they're gonna destroy all of Earth just so they can create this star is like the
Yeah.
perfect idea of like corporate coldness.
Yes, yes, yes. Um,
I
and I
love
was
the
kind of
episode where Doctor Who's like, let me go back to 2024 and find my friend Luigi Mangione.
oh man. Oh, that's
The
it.
new companion Luigi.
That's a fucking beautiful way to make this topical, man. That's awesome. To make our show topical. No, I mean, there's so much the doctor could fix in 2024. It's ridiculous. But
Yeah.
2024 is actually almost over now, too.
Yes.
Just a
Thank
couple more
goodness.
days. But I was gonna say, yeah, but I was gonna say though that the star itself to me was kind of confusing too. Because maybe you can
Sure.
explain it to me. Like Joy like takes the star seed into herself, right? That's how the whole thing's resolved.
Yes. Which I'm not totally sure why she needs to do that. Look, this is Stephen Moffat, right? He's
Yeah,
got
yeah.
big ideas, but he writes himself into corners and he kind of like hand waves himself out of them. It's a time hotel, but you can't really stay at the hotel, so why is it a hotel? Okay, you're thinking about the idea of how hotel rooms have extra doors that are weird, but also some of these places are it's not like the time hotel only goes to hotel rooms and in time. So sometimes it goes to just random places in time.
Yeah,
It's
Mount
just
Everest.
you can't think about it too much or it disintegrates.
Right.
But I'm sorry, what was I just saying? I haven't had caffeine yet today, and it's early, and I'm poor show for me today.
No. I'm actually experiencing the same thing. I probably seem like I'm high or something right now, but no. You were talking about how Stephen.
How the Starseed doesn't. Yeah, she takes it into herself. The thing that I had most a problem with is if you would assume that if she takes it into herself that the villain wins, but they try to make it like this is a positive thing, this
That
is a
she's a sort.
good thing, and he says I can't let Villain Guard win or something like that, and she says like, oh, they're nothing, we're beyond them. So it's like I guess the star then is independent, like the star isn't owned by Villain Guard anymore.
Right.
But the early on in the episode, they make a point of that when the suitcase is tied to you, it it has an effect on your consciousness, and sort of you start thinking the way that it wants you to think, which is an interesting metaphor for hegemony, I guess. But
Yeah.
but then she at the end she's like, "Oh, I'm going to be a star," and it feels like, well, how is this a win? Isn't she still being controlled by Villain
Yeah.
Guard? It's sort of weird, and I found the end both interesting and sort of surprising because Doctor Who is very, very secular,
Yes.
and to end with any reference to Jesus feels like whoa, because the Doctor never visits Jesus. There's never been an old episode where the Doctor bumps into Jesus. Like the show has always been very, very secular. I mean, there's even a line in this episode where he's talking about bootstrap paradoxes, which is one of my favorite parts, where he's like, everyone's bothered about bootstrap paradoxes, but like, yeah, like, okay, so the code came from nowhere, but so did the whole universe. No one gets mad about that.
Oh, I love
So,
that line.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it, so they talk about that, you know what I mean? Like, which is a very secular way of looking at existence. But then it ends with Bethlehem. I was very like shocked by it. I was like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was just shocking, and I also felt like another effect might be that they're almost like trolling people,
Mm.
because they're saying that like this woman, this like single woman, like the whole thing with like JD Vance. Oh man, I can't believe I'm saying this on our channel too. But like the whole thing with JD Vance with like cat women or like old ladies with
Oh,
cats,
right.
and then so
Yeah,
and all of a sudden now you have this woman that like lives by herself becoming the fucking star that guides you to Jesus. You know what I'm
wow,
saying?
that's an interesting thought. Right. Wow, that's fun. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I had not thought of that.
I mean, once again, I
Doctor
think I'm
Who is
just.
so political now. Everyone's gay in Doctor Who. Like the woman on the Orient Express, she's writing a letter, and he's like, "Oh, you're writing this to your boyfriend?" And she says, "No, your girlfriend." And I was watching with my girlfriend, and I was like, "Everyone in Doctor Who's gay now, and it's great." And she was like,
Yep.
"Yeah, it's fantastic."
Yeah. But I think that like maybe I'm just kind of applying some like cynical thoughts. Like I don't think they are trying to troll Christians or anything like that. I think that like.
It's an interesting. No, I could see someone being offended by this.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
not that they should be, but some people are very professionally offended by things, and I could see this. I mean, pick anything and connect it to Jesus, like people will be upset.
Exactly. Very good point. Yeah. It's funny because we're talking about people's reactions, and I always wonder how this show is doing. Because when you go on YouTube and stuff, it's very like bipolar. It's either like Doctor
Yeah,
Who is failing and Doctor Who is this messed up thing, or like Doctor Who is back and the Shuti Gat was crying everywhere and it's amazing, right?
yeah.
So like, do you know like where there is no bias? Like, what's the truth about the show right now? Like, is the show doing well?
I
Is
have
it
no
doing?
idea. I mean, I guess the best metric would be to see how the ratings are in the UK where it's airing on television. And I don't think I've looked at that stuff, but since the Matt Smith era, there had been a decline. I feel like there is, as much as I love Doctor Who, I think that probably, since it came back in 2005, it's been on 20 years now. The revival has been on 20 years now. So I think, maybe people want a break from it. I don't
Yeah.
know. I have no idea what its readings are, but I get a feeling that you know it's not it doesn't do well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was kind of getting that vibe too, and that's unfortunate because I do feel like it has like new blood and new life with Shutigawa. You know?
Yeah, yeah, but the thing is, it's like the Marvel problem of like if people are getting sick of it, you can make as many changes as you want. It's never going to. Let's see. I'm looking at the Radio Times. Doctor Who overnight ratings revealed for special Joy to the World. Let's see. Stephen Moffat pen episode, which aired on Christmas Day at 5:10 p.m. You gotta love the UK. Yeah, we'll put on at 5:10. 4.11 million viewers, according to Barb's overnight ratings. It must be noted this is not the full story, as it doesn't include viewers who will be watching on catch up. Uh,
Right.
the now is that up or down from before? Nah, you don't have that information. That's what I want to know what the trend is because for a long time it was trending down. From Capaldi forward, it was
Yeah.
good. It was trending downward. Uh,
Right.
yeah,
Well, Mike, one of my favorite things is to talk about, like, to go off on tangents with you. And like you were just talking about how the show, has been around, the revival's been around for 20 years and we
yeah.
need a break. One thing I've been thinking about in general is like these things need to stop for a while just so people can kind of catch their breath and then get into it again. Right. And I think Star Wars is the perfect example of that, right? I feel like it just
I
kind of
think
keeps going
Marvel's
at
a
this
better
point.
example, but I think Star Wars too. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
because I think even the general public is feeling Marvel fatigue.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but it shows the corporate mentality because it's like Coca-Cola, they'll always make Coca-Cola, right? They're not going to stop making Coca-Cola. They might try different flavors and stuff, but they're not going to stop. And I think that's the way that these companies think. Like you and I see value in stopping for a while, but I think Disney, it's not even in their mindset. Like the idea that they would just have a year where they don't make something Star Wars or Marvel, they cannot do it.
Right, right.
So we're stuck with God knows where things are going with Marvel. I mean, it's in such a bad, to me at least, it's in such a bad place right now.
Oh, well then don't watch the other thing that's streaming on Disney Plus right now, What If? Because I feel like that's sort of like
Oh
bottom
yeah,
of the
someone
barrel
fucks
Marvel.
Howard the Duck or something. What's going on over there?
Oh, just What If? Did you ever read the comics of What If?
Yes, but I don't remember people fucking ducks. I remember one that was like, what if Punisher killed all of the other, like, I remember that was very cool.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what they do now.
Well, no, I mean, because I mean that's kind of going along with what you were saying before, which is that like, what if in the comics would have these kind of thrilling concepts because you could do whatever you want, but
Yeah,
then the show is just kind of like recycling Marvel because they're just sort of doing what if this thing that happened in the movies happened differently. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? And
yeah,
they kind of have this like closed circle where they're kind of just eating their own tail, like Ouroboros, you know, because we're just stuck in this constant making loop.
yeah, yeah. Um, I wonder. I don't think Doctor Who has the breaks through culturally the way that it was. I think Matt Smith era was probably the biggest era. I remember like there was advertisements on buses in New York City. Like
Yep.
that was the biggest, and it was on BBC America, and that was when they started simulcasting it, right? We weren't getting it later. They were putting on the Matt Smith episodes the same time on BBC America, or the same day at least, as it was in the UK. And I think since then it doesn't break through. I mean, there are Doctor Who fans, but I don't hear lots of people being like, "Oh boy, Doctor Who's on Disney Plus."
Right. I
Although it
well,
is interesting to me to be like to scroll through and like see Doctor Who like right next to Skeleton Crew and
yeah,
be like, "Wow, what did it?" You know?
yeah. No, I mean, it's funny because there was a time where like Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, right?
Yeah,
They were on the cover of Entertainment Weekly. Like it was a big deal, at
yeah,
one point. Yeah, but I think that like living in Austin, in the Austin area, there's a lot of like kind of like hip people and weird people and stuff, and you'll see a lot of like Doctor Who merch and stuff like that. you
Yeah.
know, in those kind of places.
Yeah. And think about Karen Gillan became a Marvel character, and Matt Smith is on House of Dragon, right? So they broke through in America the way that no other Doctor Who actors really have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's funny because they have ornament of the Matt Smith character from House of the Dragon. And so, like, if you get last year's 11th Doctor and that ornament, you have two Matt Smiths on your Christmas tree.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be distracted. I'm looking up, I'm trying to find ratings information, but it's so interesting how fandom, and this is a whole nother can of worms that we don't have to get into, but fandom becomes so political. Um, like, you know, probably from Gamergate onward.
Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
seeing a headline. I'm seeing a website here. A headline: BBC refuses to acknowledge terrible Doctor Who ratings. But I was just looking at something that said the ratings are good. So it's there's no objective reality. I mean, it's really funny. Like if you were to Google something like Kathleen Kennedy, probably like or go on YouTube and put in Kathleen Kennedy, you'd probably find the first like page of videos are all like horrible screeds against her.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, um, that's just kind of the way it is, and it's like it's something that, like, when we were growing up, there wasn't anything like this. People had opinions about things, but it like the news was like much more straightforward. Just would tell you
Yeah,
like this show did well, this show got this rating. You
it
know,
wasn't politicized. I mean, everything is politicized. Everything's radicalized. Um, to a crazy point where it's like, oh, you like Doctor Who? Well, then you must be some kind of a liberal cuck,
right,
whatever.
right, right.
So it's a wild time.
Yeah. No, no,
And
and it's funny too because, like, when you think about the British franchises, there's Doctor Who and there's Harry Potter, right? Like, do they have any other like major fan from Britain?
I mean, those are the two huge ones.
Yeah, I mean maybe like Warhammer, but like Warhammer's a much more smaller pool of
Yeah,
fans than Doctor Who, especially smaller than Harry Potter.
Harry Potter's
Um,
huge.
yeah, yeah. But out of those two, like Doctor Who and Harry Potter, they're both extremely volatile, like political talking points.
Well, yeah, I mean specifically because J.K. Rowling lost her mind
Yes,
and has
yes.
become this uh, just horrid person.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so that sparks all sorts of debate. But yeah, I mean, like if you uh, if you cast a black person or cast a woman in something, or have a gay character or something, um, you'll have people immediately be like, "Well, this is political, and I'm going to be angry about it."
Right. Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I mean, that's kind of Doctor Who's been kind of like riding that wave for years. I mean, not necessarily since its return, right? It's become
No,
more progressive. Like, when do you think that the real progressive stuff started?
well, that's interesting. I think that the most overt thing was when Jodie Whittaker became the first female Doctor. But I do think going back to the beginning of the revival, if you if you're smart enough to actually like think about the ideology there, I think it is very. I think Russell Davies is a gay person. He's a very liberal person. I think he fundamentally changed Doctor Who, where Doctor Who in the past was very colonial minded. You know,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
would save aliens and stuff, but he thought of himself as like better than them. He sometimes sort of some as savage.
Right.
And I think Russell T Davies was the one who was like, no, he's this like big liberal guy. He treats all life as important. He treats all kinds of people as important. I mean, one of his first episodes, a Christopher Eccleston episode, um, he talks about Marxism in a positive. You know what I mean? So it's there, but I think not to mock people who are politically conservative, but they tend to notice big things and not smaller ideological things. So I don't know if that they noticed that.
Oh my god.
No, I'm serious. Like, I think the things that conservatives get more mad about are big things like, oh, the doctor's woman now, or doctor's black now, or this
Right.
doctor has a love scene with a man now, or whatever.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
like the clickbait kind of big things
yeah,
versus like the usual subversion of the norms and stuff
yeah.
that happens. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I don't know. I mean, I will keep talking about this show though with you as long as you want to keep coming back on here.
Sure, yeah,
Eh,
absolutely.
when does the new season begin?
I don't know. I feel like it's probably gonna be a minute.
Because they show a trailer for the new season and it looks much more like I was saying before, like sci-fi in feel
Yes, yes.
versus like the more fantasy aspect of the last season.
Yeah, no, no, and I'm excited about that. When and what was I don't know. I can't find it. Somewhere.
It's
I'll be
okay.
around. If I'm alive, we'll still talk. We'll do it.
Yeah. So they showed the new companion in this season, and then they showed like these sort of giant mechs, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then at one point it looks like the doctor's in the TARDIS, but there's no gravity.
yeah. It was all very quick. And what bothers me is I have to go online to find it. Why doesn't Disney Plus give us those? You know what I mean? They don't show it after the episode, which is fine, but they should show it in the extras. Disney Plus never shows you the next time on Doctor Who or coming later on Doctor Who for some reason. You got to go
Oh, that's
online and
annoying.
find it.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I never even thought of that. Um, yeah, I don't know. Doctor Who almost does kind of feel like Disney's not really making it a big deal, right? In general,
I think they're beginning to wonder if it was worth
the
getting involved
purchase.
the way that they did.
Yeah,
Because clearly they spend a good amount of money on it. I mean,
yeah,
it looks beautiful. Look at those dinosaurs.
yeah. No, and I mean, like, I think they almost kind of feel that way about Star Wars.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. Have they made back that 4 billion they
I
gave
think
George
so.
Lucas yet?
Uh,
Probably. No, I think that they really thought at the beginning that Star Wars was going to be like printing money, and it hasn't been that.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, well, if there's more Star Wars stuff coming up, we could talk about that on our channel too. But I just really love talking about Doctor Who. I'm glad that I came back for the show just so I could, talk to you about Doctor Who. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. I want to apologize to your viewers. I'm sorry I lost my train of thought twice. I really should have done a line of cocaine or something before this episode.
Oh, yeah. No, it's okay. And I should apologize to you because I'm probably acting like I just like smoked a joint or something right now. Yeah, it's a little early for me too.
Yeah, yeah. It's early and it's I don't know. I'm off for a little bit because of the holiday, and you lose your sharpness. You sort of down. You see. I guess maybe this is capitalism. Like when I'm working, my job has to be like, oh god, my skin is so thick and my nerves are up. So
Yeah.
like when I'm not working a little bit, I'm like I sort of I become very like relaxed person. Like a human probably should be.
Yes. Yeah, I know it's funny. Like just working in education, there's such a huge uh gap of time between when I'm at work the last time
Yeah.
and when I'm going back. So yeah, you start to like feel like a regular person and nice and calm. And then it's like, oh, I've got to get back into that mode, you know.
Right.
And
Yeah.
also working in education, I have to wake up. I wake up at 6. I could wake up earlier, but like I wake up at 6 for my regular job. But then when it's like this time of year, I wake up probably like closer to 9. You know?
It's always funny to me with like I wake up usually around 6:30, and how quickly I turn into a reclusive night owl. I always like whenever I have time off. Like for the first couple days, I wake up a normal time, but then I start like taking naps. And I
Yeah.
start being like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna watch a movie tonight. I don't gotta make myself go to sleep. I can watch a movie. And
Right.
before you know it, you're off the rails. And that's where I am, man. Like I'm probably gonna go back to sleep after this.
Yeah. Yeah. Ditto.
I was up to like 3 a.m. last night, fucking watching sorry to curse so much. I'm so
No,
sorry.
no, please. We curse all the time.
Watching and I've been trying to watch a lot of anime, catch
Oh,
up on anime this holiday break.
what are you watching?
Dan to Dan or Don to Don. Have you?
I have no idea
It's
what that is.
it. Well, ask your daughter. You told me once that she likes anime. She probably knows about it. It is. It's like this anime that everyone is obsessed with right now because it's really very good. There's, I think, only 8 episodes, and it's on Netflix.
Okay.
And it's just a really, really fun comedy, sci-fi, fantasy, romance. It's so hard to describe. It's just so good. Watch Don to Don, and it's spelled Dan, DANDAN.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. I was gonna write like DAN 2 Dan, like Fast Too Furious, So I'm
No,
glad you
I
spelled
spelled
it for
it wrong.
me.
It's DANDADAN. Dan da Dan.
Okay.
And then I last night I watched Tokyo Override, which I think no one gave a crap about but me. That was a Netflix animated series.
I think I've
I've
seen
been
that.
trying to catch up on stuff.
No, yeah, of course. And like, Brian and I, like, we just reviewed Creature Commandos. Like, we're really into that.
Yeah,
And
I
then
was thinking about doing that too. I never
mhm.
did Penguin, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Penguin's so good. You got to do the Penguin." So
Yeah, we covered Penguin on here too, and I definitely recommend it. Especially if you like The Sopranos and stuff, has that kind of vibe. But yeah, I mean, we're just gonna keep covering stuff on this channel. I'm keeping us under an hour over here, but if you guys
yeah.
like this discussion with Mike, I highly recommend you check out Pop Culture Man Children. Mike, what do you have coming up on your channel?
Well, we just had for this is such an off-color joke. I'm sorry. We just
Oh
had
boy,
for
here we go.
Christmas an episode on the classic film Black Christmas, and then last
Uh,
night the star of the film Black Christmas passed away. And my girlfriend pointed out to me that we mentioned Maggie Smith on the podcast, and she died later that week. So I believe my podcast might be cursed.
Jesus.
So, so they've got that going on. The curse of pop culture man children. No, coming up
Wow.
for New Year's, I've got a really great episode with my friend Nadia Cater where we talk about the novel The Man Who Folded Himself. It's a sci-fi novel from the 1970s that is all about time travel paradoxes, and we thought it was a great way to celebrate New Year's. I've got an episode coming up on I saw the TV Glow, one of the great films of the last year. And we for recently for Halloween we did Universal Monsters. Peter was on for that. We do we do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Ephemera.
There you go. Twice in one episode. Oh my god. Yeah. Well, that is awesome. I kind of want to check out that. What was the name of the book? The Twice Folded Man? What did you say it
The
was?
Man Who Folded Himself.
Oh, okay.
It's a novel, but it's very short. It's like 130 pages. You can read it in one sitting. It's really good. It's really, really good.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. That's awesome, man. Well, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. And next time Doctor Who's on, you can expect to see me and Mike doing a review. We'll see you
Absolutely.
guys next time.